I've talked to somebody about constellation work, and when I mentioned the scenario with the parent and the child, immediately they said, well, are you telling me to almost embrace an abusive parent? And I feel like when you say energetic amputation, that makes sense, because in that sense you're like, of course you can't just cut off your parent. But at the same time, where do you draw the boundary between like accepting energetically but also not enabling someone who's hurting you?
Well, when you can be in a place of, first of all, accepting your parents, and when you imagine them and you look at them and you can say yes to them, that's like saying, I say yes to my life. I say yes to my existence. It's not about forgiving the parent. It's not about forgiveness. It's about accepting where you're from and who you came from. And then you're in alignment with the truth. And when you're in the alignment with the truth, energy flows. So there's a current of energy that flows down our ancestral lineages, the mother line and the father line. And it goes way, way back. Who knows how far it goes back? Who knows how far our lineage goes back? But that's where we come from, and it's inherent with us being born that we are the recipient of that energy, which is kind of like a lifeline, life force. Some people call it love. And it's palpable, you can feel it. And when you've been cut off from that, whether it's abusive parents or abusive grandparents, then you're kind of undernourished in a way. And, you know, you might feel lost in your life, or you might feel you need things in excess to replace something that's missing, like alcohol, drugs, sex, work, whatever that might be. To someone who feels they are searching for something, it could be that they're not getting that energy. And in a constellation, what we look at is like, where did that end? Where did that stop? What needs to happen in order for that energy to flow? Well, the first thing is that the child is able to receive it. Alright, so that starts with acceptance of where you come from and who you came from. Then, when you look into the family system, you might see, well, that's interesting, because the same thing happened with my mother and her mother. The feeling of, you know, she didn't get enough, or she was abusive, or manipulative, or she didn't care. And then you might go back one more generation and you see, oh, there was a war and the family had to leave their country of origin. That's a trauma. That can be traumatic, especially if you have no choice. And other people in your family are dying because they can't leave. That can be traumatic. So, you know, we're looking at transgenerational trauma as well, which gets passed down. Point being is that when you get a bigger perspective of your family, and you can see a pattern that has been reoccurring, or you can see the suffering that your mom may have had when she was a kid, like maybe her mom died young, you know, when the child was young, or the father died, or someone died, like maybe a sibling or something, and it was a tragic event that didn't really get processed, didn't get talked about. Then the parents might not have any love to give the other kids, because their love is with the dead one. And there's usually other emotions wrapped up in that, as well as guilt and shame, or whatever it might be. But all these like emotions that get buried, they all come out in a constellation. They all come out, and then energy can flow and things move. That's the kind of thing that happens in the constellation. You know, hidden things come up to the surface in order to be healed. As I said. And yeah, the boundary of, do I allow myself to be abused by my parent? No, of course, no, you don't want to be abused by your parent. But when you accept them as your parent, things change. And people are amazed what happens after that. When you can go from denying the parent to, very simply, thanking them for your life, huge change, huge shift. Everything is different from that point on. Life changing. It's so simple, but sometimes it's hard for people when they're really identified with that, where they're identified with labels like narcissist, bipolar, alcoholic, all these things that they're identifying with, overshadows what's really true. And what's true is your life is a gift. Life is a gift, and you got given it. And when you can receive it with grace, everything changes. Everything.